Let's play a little game, shall we? Let's see if we can name all the compact 5-door family hatchbacks that we can. I'm not talking about SUVs or crossovers, I'm talking about normal 5-door family hatchbacks, you know, like the Ford Focus. Oh, well, there's one, there's our starter for 10, isn't it? The Ford Focus. So what else can we think of? Well, there's the Volkswagen Golf, the Vauxhall Astra, there's the Peugeot 308, the Citroen C4. I suppose we could also include things like the BMW 1 Series, Mercedes A-Class, the Audi A3, they could be included in that. Oh yeah, the Toyota Corolla, that's another one. Honda Civic, Kia Ceed, yeah, they still make the Ceed, and Hyundai with the i30. But I bet there's one you've forgotten about. And that's a real shame, because in a world of crossover this and SUV that, this one's really rather interesting and really rather good. And it's this, the Mazda 3, which has just had a bit of a revision. And in a world where everyone else is sort of downsizing, remember this is a Mazda. And Mazda don't exactly follow the herd. They've gone the complete opposite way. They're upsizing, because underneath the bonnet of this is not some 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo, but a 2.5 litre inline 4. Well done, Mazda. Welcome to this week's new car review. Welcome to the newly revised Mazda 3. Please sit yourself down, make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now, before I get started on this week's road test review of Mazda's newly revised 3, it is of course the time where I would just ask a small favour of you. If you don't mind, could you just make sure you subscribe to the House of Cars channel, please? Once you've done that, press the little bell button down below, because then that way you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the review, if you enjoy it, and I sincerely hope you do obviously, then give it a little thumbs up, and of course, as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know your thoughts on the cars that we feature on House of Cars, such as the new Mazda 3, and of course, on the House of Cars channel on the whole. So, the 5-door family hatchback, it's still quite a big marketplace, despite our love of crossovers and SUVs now, which we seem to be buying by the bucket load, really. But manufacturers, well, most of them, still see sort of like a marketplace for these C-sector hatchbacks, except Ford for odd reasons, because they're actually stopping production of the Focus later this year, much like they did with the Fiesta. Bit odd. But of course, we've still got the likes of the Golf, the Astra, the Peugeot 308, the Toyota Corolla, the Civic, da-da-da-da. But this is Mazda, remember. Mazda don't tend to do things by the book. They don't tend to follow the herd, do they? They do things in their own way, and that's why I love Mazda in some respects. Because when everyone else was going hybrids with their big SUVs, Mazda went, do you know what, I think we're going to put a 6-cylinder diesel engine in it. And they went, what, a V6? They went, no, let's do an inline 6. When everyone else was doing sort of like compact 5-door crossovers with bigger batteries and powerful motors in them, Mazda went, do you know what, we're going to do a little sort of like a smaller coupe-like one with rear hinge doors and a smaller battery, because let's be fair, how far do you need to go anyway? And when everyone else started chasing hot hatchbacks with massive power, Mazda went, actually, we've got this little 2-seater sports car, the MX-5, which seems to sell quite well, and it doesn't really need an awful lot of power. So it's the same here, isn't it? You know, when everyone else is downsizing engines, you know, 1 litre this, 3-cylinder that, cylinder deactivation this, and turbo this, and all the rest of it, Mazda went, no, 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 no! We've got this new 2.5 litre inline 4, normally aspirated, that we're going to fit to this. But let's be honest, how good is it? Well, I think it's very good indeed. And I think this is a car that flies a little bit under the radar that we need to take a little bit more notice of. And in this week's review, I'm going to show you how. But as always, let's take a brief look at the main points on the car before we start the full review. So for 2025, the revised Mazda 3 range now includes 17 models, featuring a choice of 15 hatchbacks and 2 saloon models. The car retains the previous 186 PS Skyactiv-X engine, but it's now joined by this new 140 PS Skyactiv-G engine. 5 trim levels are available in the 5-door hatchback and 1 in the 4-door saloon. There are also enhanced specifications and equipment levels across the model range. And it's priced around £24,500, climbing to just over £31,000, depending on what body style, specification and driveline that you choose. So as always, Mazda continues to buck the trend and refuse to follow the herd, because it's increasing the amount of models that you can buy. It even gives you the option of a saloon model, which not a lot of people do in this class. And as I say, it's not exactly downsizing, not with that big engine in the front there. But does all that work? Well, let's stick it through another House of Cars road test review and find out. Right, as always, we start with how the car looks. And I'm going to be quite bold here. I think this is probably one of the best looking cars in its class, if not the best looking car in this class. I think this is an incredible looking little car, and it's really simple. That's the thing I really like about it. Now, this is what Mazda call their Kodo design language, the soul of motion. Okay, but I just think it works. I think it looks great. They've done some concept cars, which obviously, you know, that's the idea now. The concept cars, you know, sort of like, you know, show the styling direction that they're going to take. Look how low it is at the front. That's my knee, and I'm a shorty. That nose cone is just above my knee. It's a really low nose car, and then goes into that really swoopy, bustled back. I think it looks great. This car I've got's an exclusive line. So we'll talk about trims and stuff and pricing, but that means it gets this really nice sort of blacked out kind of mesh grille at the front here, which looks lovely. And again, sort of like this area here, which is chrome, I think, on the higher spec car. And it just looks nice, I think, and especially in this grey. It's called polymetal grey. It'd be nice to film it obviously on a brighter day, but hey, can't help that. But it's got a really nice sort of like, it's almost like a tinge of lavendery purple to it when the sun hits in. It's really nice. It was one of the optional metallic colours. Right, okay, what are we talking about? Styling, right. Singular headlamp unit in there, so LED headlamp projector unit there, but then it's got illumination at the side of it as well, which is really nice too, you know. So there's got a real, it's almost this negative space in here where it just sort of like shrouds over the nose cone, shrouds over the top of the headlight. That's lovely, but it's really simple. So I mean, there's no big sort of like scoops or big crease lines down the front of it. You've obviously got cooling through the grille there. There's a bit extra there at this front splitter down at the bottom. Your big Mazda logo there. Yeah, I think it's a really good looking little car. So 5-door hatchback, but you can get it as a 4-door saloon as well. Do you remember when you used to get that? You know, Escort, and then the Orion, and then of course the Golf, and it was the Jetta, Astra, Belmont. You know, the Mazda 3 comes as a 4-door saloon if you want that booted saloon. Now it's the same overall wheelbase that you get with the saloon, but because obviously it's got the boot at the back, it's another 200mm longer, and it's only available on the one trim line. But we'll, again, as I say, we'll talk about it a bit later on. But I think that's interesting. You can still buy it as a 4-door saloon if you really want it. And the saloon has a very different style to it in some respects. Whilst it looks the same at the front and in some respects down the side, the way this has got that long nose and then this sort of like swooped, sort of like circular back, this bustled back, I think it gives this sort of like almost a little bit of sort of like cab forward look on the hatchback. Whereas because it then flows into a really elegant boot lid at the back, on the saloon it's a bit more cab rear. It's quite an interesting trick I think Mazda have done. The range starts on 16-inch wheels. This exclusive line, sort of mid-spec car, gets the 18s in this nice kind of metallic grey finish. I don't like black wheels, which I think the top of the range car gets, but I do like these grey ones. It's nice, it suits well with this bodywork. And that means privacy glass as well on the car as well. One piece of chrome, which is nice, just that window line there. That just almost that little tick up there, which is good. Now, you see what I was saying about there's no silly character lines here. This is the clever bit with Mazda's designers. In other words, all the sort of like the movement of the design is in the panel work. And it's a really interesting thing. It's not until you stand up close to the car and really look at it, you get what they talk about. On the sort of like, as you look down the flanks of the car, the way the door curves out then in and then back out, that transition on the different planes gives us like an idea of motion almost. I know that sounds silly, me saying that, but trust me on this. That's all that's needed. That's why you don't have big slashes through it or silly, you know, belt lines or more chrome or stuff like that. You don't need it. It's all in the panel work. It's really simple, yet really elegant. I really like it. Nice big door mirrors that stand sort of like come out from the door rather than the quarter like there. Might have been nice if the glass had gone into the corner there, but there you go. And it's quite a shallow rear window. That's the only thing with this styling area at the back here. This C-pillar makes it quite It feels quite claustrophobic in the back, which I'll show you in a second. But the doors go right almost back to the wheel arches there, which is nice. And you've got a reasonable sized boot. At the back here, you've got this nice big roof spoiler. But again, you see how I mean? I'm only 5'8", and you see right across, I'm towering above the car. It's quite a low car. Gives it quite a low, sleek, sporty stance. It's just really good looking, I think. And you see what I mean about that rear end, how it just curves round at the back. Great. Really cool. Oh, so really cool looking. Love Mazda's tail lights, I really do. It's like the little MX-30 they do as a hybrid or the fully electric car. They've got almost like rocket booster rear lights, these circular lights. And it's a similar thing here where you've got the rear lights here, obviously, and then a second one in the actual hatch itself. Gives it a nice kind of futuristic look, I think. Very simple badging there, Mazda 3, Skyactiv-G across there. Your boot handler's underneath the big Mazda badge there, a really nice place to put it. So rather than underneath here, you've got it tucked up underneath the badge itself, which is quite cool. High level brake light as you'd expect, and rear wiper obviously too. Reverse camera tucked up underneath there, and obviously the sensors across the back in the lower section done in the black. So, bold statement to say, I think it's the best looking car in its class, I really do. I love the way it looks, really low, really sporty. But as I say, simple and elegant. They've kept it really, really simple. But that's my opinion, which in some respects doesn't really matter because you guys are out there buying these cars. What do you think? Better looking car than a Golf? Better looking than a Focus and an Astra and a Peugeot 308 and a Honda Civic and a Kia Ceed and all the others we talked about earlier? I think so. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Practical? Yeah, reasonably, 450 litres of boot space. And if you fold down the 60-40 split rear seat, that takes total capacity up to 1,138 litres. Not the biggest in its class, not really the smallest either. It's quite a nice usable space. The only downside I'd say is there's quite a drop from the sort of like the sill level down here. So if you've got to haul stuff out, you know, especially if you've got to think about it maybe as a wheelchair user or something, there's a bit to lift over when it comes to that. Suitcases, yes, they do fit. The downside is they don't go that way, or certainly not the bigger ones, because of sort of like the angle of the rear seat and this bit here. So you've got to fold them, sorry, you've got to pack them flat, but they will go in. So there's a big suitcase, there's a medium suitcase there. You can get carry-ons sitting above there, 2 carry-ons there, and there's space down the side there for another carry-on, or dare I suggest rucksacks or smaller bags. If you're just using carry-on bags, then obviously yes, you could probably get quite a few of those across that way. So yeah, as I say, it's not bad. And that's underneath the parcel shelf itself, so it's quite deep, the boot, which is good because obviously with the sloping rear back, that is maybe the downside. But as I say, it's a reasonable size of boot for the type of car that it is. Right, rear seat space. Well, one of the downsides with that lower roofline is that you do have to really duck down to get into the car. However, once you're in here, it's okay in some respects. Now that is that seat's pushed a little bit further back in fairness, but that's my driving position. I'm 5'8", so that's where I sit. So somebody but my size can fit behind somebody my size. I've got knee room, I've got foot room, and I've got the seat all the way down to the floor, so I can tuck my feet underneath the seat, and I've got headroom as well. However, I would say if you're closing in on the 6 foot mark, or you're behind a 6 foot driver, that obviously is going to change, okay? But you've got to tuck down, as I say, to actually get into the car. So just bear that in mind. I was just thinking that one of the yardsticks in some respects I always think about is my parents-in-law. You know, they live quite close to us and we pick them up quite a lot. So, you know, and they're in their 80s now. Get my mother-in-law or my father-in-law into sort of the back and getting their legs swung in. Is a car going to be good enough for that? And I would think they'd probably be a bit tight for getting in and out the back of this. So just be aware of that. That's all I'll say. 3 across, well, I suppose you could, but you've got that big transmission tunnel in the middle there. That's the downside. You do have a centre armrest with cup holders, which is obviously very, very nice. There's no mat pocket on the back of the driver's seat. I never understand that. There is one in the back of the passenger seat. There is some door bins, but they're quite shallow in fairness. They're shaped for a water bottle, but that's it. And there's no connectivity back here. There's no USB ports back here. You know, if you, like my daughter was here trying to charge up her phone or a, you know, her iPad or a Kindle or something for a long drive, there's no charging port back here, which is a bit disappointing. What is nice to see, however, is ISOFIX points that are nice and easy to get to. So they just little plastic covers that just pop off. That's what I really do like, and that's nice and neat, and it's a much better solution than having them behind zips and stuff, or having to jab the prongs behind the seats. The seat itself is nice. It's quite nicely sculpted on the backrest, and there's a reasonable length of squab there, so there is some support under the thighs. So yeah, again, it's a bit like the boot. There are better cars in the class for this, but there's an awful lot worse as well. It's fairly average when it comes to that. Just as I say, just bear in mind, getting into it is, dare I suggest, probably the struggle a little bit. It's probably the most negative part of it. But once you're in here, space-wise, it's okay. Right, up front. Well, this is an absolute joy, this cabin, I think. And I've also been driving this car this week, and Mazda seem to just do cabins really, really well. And it's not dissimilar in some respects to the Honda Civic. Whilst it was the Type R that I drove on the channel before, there's a lot of things similar in that car to this car, which I'll discuss in a second. Let me start by one negative, okay? It's quite dark in here. I meant to say that in the back actually, because remember I was saying about the styling of it, you know, you've got quite a shallow window line, and Mazda only seemed to do a dark interior in this car, which is odd, because when I reviewed the big CX-80 with the light interior, it felt completely different. It does feel quite dark and claustrophobic in here. That's the only thing I will say. So that's a wee negative for me, just how, you know, you can't option it with maybe say a lighter grey seat, or you know, or you know, whatever, but it always feels quite suppressed in here. Anyway, there we go. That's my negative, and that's pretty much it. Oh no, there's one more which we'll get on to in a second. Right, let me talk about this. Brilliant driver's display, really simple. So you've got a screen. Well, I say it's a screen. You've got dials on sort of like the left and the right. So your rev counter, temperature, and fuel gauge over here. Proper analog dials. In the centre is a 7-inch TFT display, which you can change. You can change the way the way that actually looks. So you can have it so it's an actual speedometer. You can have it so it's a digital speed reader at the top, and then your sort of like what do you call it? Your ADAS systems there. Or you can change it so you've got the big speedo around it, and then obviously some of your driving information there. So your trip meter in the middle. So yeah, it's not massively configurable, but you know, you probably will change it to how you like it. I must admit, I quite liked it with the standard speedo. It's nice having a proper speedo again. But it's a 7-inch TFT display there. Then you've got Mazda's infotainment system. Sorry, I should have said, and I really like the way it's all just cowled in there. So it's really simple little layout. White on black dials, very easy to read at a glance, really nice and simple. Plus in this particular trim I got head-up display as well. And then a nice little face fence there. Sorry, I should have said that before I moved on. Then I've got this Mazda infotainment system here, this 10.25-inch infotainment thing, which is not a touch screen. Okay, you use it with this rotary dial here, not dissimilar to BMW's old iDrive and my electrified GV70 Genesis, which is just gone today. Oh, really sad. But yeah, you just scroll through and then click on the one that you want, and it's a really lovely little thing to use. The only thing I will say is this: you get standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is wireless, and they work much better on a touch screen, you know, to activate things on CarPlay, and I tend to default to CarPlay. So trying to scroll through Spotify playlists and things like that yesterday, you know, and type information into sort of like a navigation on Google Maps where we were going yesterday. My daughter and I went out yesterday for a wee drive yesterday morning, out for some breakfast, and we put the nav in, and it was just a bit difficult to sort of get everything. It would have been, dare I suggest, much easier just to be able to type it in on the screen. But the actual usability of this and functionality of it's brilliant. And when you're in the actual default Mazda system with the menus up and down here, it's got to be one of the best, I think. You know, and the actual use of the rotary controller, which I'm going to talk about in a second, is the way it clicks is just lovely. You know, the way you just go into stuff, you know, it just works, and it's just joyful to use. All the controls just have this really nice sort of tactility to them, and that's what I mean. So if you go in here to change your vehicle displays, which you can do, you know, and you can change it. Oh, instrument cluster display. Yeah, you see, you can change it there. You can change bits of the side as well, which is clever. And then you just go back that way, center display. And there's various things there you can do. And again, it's like here, it's just nice white lettering on black background. It's really clear and easy to read. So that's excellent. I really would like it. And as I say, the only thing I can really criticise it for but the CX-80 has it. It'd be nice if you could use it as a touchscreen as well. But then in saying that's quite a stretch forward. Okay, right, I'm not going to go on too much about that because as I say, I really like it. What I was talking about there with the controls, and this is what I meant, it's like very like the Honda Civic. Oh, that's lovely. Just turning these controls, these temperature controls here, and then this dial here, the rotary controller, and then there's a volume control down here as well. It's such a nice feeling, just a real tactility to every control that you touch, you know. Switching the heated seats on, you know, the button's got a nice damped feeling to it, you know. Same on the steering wheel as well. When you use the buttons on the steering wheel, when you're going through the various different things, they've just got a really nice click sound to them. It's just really nice. Somebody's really thought about how this interior works. Somebody's really put some thought into the feeling that you get, you know, when you use the controls in this interior, and that's why I love it. And that's why I say it's very similar to the Mazda, to the Honda's interior. Everything about it has a really nice feel to it. You know, I've driven a lot of, you know, newer product from, dare I suggest, more premium brands lately that doesn't have the feeling that this does. You know, just to the little minor things that you notice. And then we talk about the actual quality of the materials themselves. You've got this leather sort of like style covering on the dashboard here. Then you've got on the top this sort of like squidgy rubber that, you know, on the top there. And then down the side here, this console, again, it's not plastic, it's the same leather cut style covering down here. And it's all across the doors as well. So the top sections of the doors, and then the door handles themselves are this leather style covering in there. It just feels quality, it feels plush. It's not until you get down lower down you start finding some plastics, and even then they're built really well. That brings me to my only other criticism of this interior, is just this area here, this piano black. That's the only downside, because this car's done what, 4,600 miles, and this is all scratched to buggery. This is horrible down here, this whole piano black system, it's all scratched up. And it's dusty and it's got fingerprints on it, and it looks like it's in a 10-year-old car now. That's the only thing that lets it down. The rest of it's lovely. Look at the sort of like the aluminium trim across there, and it goes into the door, and the door handles there, and it just these lovely controls for the climate. And look how simple that is. You know, you're not having to use a touch screen or anything for this. Just a little simple little bank of switches, and the display there, really easy to use. You know, yesterday, as I say, I had Katie in the car. We were going down for a wee daddy and daughter breakfast down at Caffeine and Machine in Hampshire. And, you know, and she was, you know, adjusting the temperature, and she said it was just really nice and easy to use. And then we get to the gear stick and the steering wheel, which I'm going to talk about now. This has got to be one of the best steering wheels in a car today. I love this steering wheel because it's round for a start. It's the exact thickness that you want in a car. And look how simple that is. 3-spoke design. It reminds me of the old 1970s sort of like Japanese steering wheels in its design. But it's so nice to hold. And the buttons that are grouped on it are just enough. So you've got your volume control, your source, your track search, your phone over on this side, and then here's your cruise control over on this side here. So it's got everything that you want on it, and a voice activation. So it has everything that you need on it, on just this simple thin spoke that are just really easy to use. Why can't everyone do this? That's really nice. And this, look, a gear stick. And it is absolutely beautiful in its action. It's the right height, it's the right, sort of like, you know, dare I suggest size of knob, if you'll pardon the expression, matron, you know, to hold in the cup of your hand. It just, and again, it's got the metal and the leather. Oh, it's lovely to use this. I really like the interior of the Mazda 3. I really do, as I say. I love the Honda Civic, and I appreciate I had the Type R. And I thought that was a great interior to use. This is lovely. As I say, if they just could change that, you know, I don't know what you would do, just maybe a different, maybe an aluminium style surround there, just something different. Because as I say, it's all scratched up. But that would change it. The seats are really nice too. And again, so we did over 100 miles in the car yesterday, Katie and I, and it was just really comfortable. It's a really good driving position. As I say, because you've got that nice soft armrest on the door, you know, and this nice soft armrest here, it just feels really good when you sit here. And everything's in line, you know, your whole self is in line. So as you sit here, the pedals are at a right distance. The relationship between the pedals, the steering wheel to the gear shift, It's just perfection. Again, it just shows the depth of, and it's these little things that maybe you don't realise at first, but when you start to use a car, it's all the little bits. You just go, oh yeah, that feels really good. That's nice. I like the fact somebody's done that. It's good storage. I've got 2 cup holders in there. You've got wireless charging pad down in there, and then I've got this armrest which you can slide back just to put in here, and you've also got USB-C connections there, plus a 12-volt charge. Plus you can open that up, and then you've got an actual sort of like cubby box in there for storing your Polo Mints in, or your packets of Revels or whatever that you've got there. So yeah, I think it's fantastic, I really do, in terms of, you know, the quality and the materials used and the design of it. Equipment level is really, really high as well. As I say, this is sort of like a mid-spec exclusive line, but even the basic, I think it's called Prime line. I did write it down, apologies, I shouldn't really refer to this, should I? Prime line, yeah, so what does the Prime line get? So the Prime line gets the wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You still got the TFT screen. What else did I say here? Prime line gets everything I mentioned regarding the screens. Plus it gets a head-up display, radar cruise control, leather steering wheel, blind spot monitoring, traffic sign recognition, lane keep assist and departure warning. And then onto this exclusive line adds Bose audio system, heated seats, the wireless phone charging pad, and then some styling differences. So yeah, so I mean, even the basic car gets loads of equipment as standard. It's a really nice car, this. It's really, really well thought out. But this interior was a joy to spend time in yesterday. It's quality, it's well designed, it's well thought out. The use of materials, except for that piano black, is one of the best, if not the best in its class. And I love the way the controls just work and how they feel when you use them. It's an absolutely brilliant interior. Now time for the part of the review where if Olivia Newton-John had been a car reviewer, should have said, let's get technical. New engine. Okay, so this is the big news with this car. And as I say, Mazda have gone against the tide and gone upsizing instead of downsizing. So there's 2 engines available with the Mazda 3, okay? You still get the 2-litre Skyactiv-X with 186 PS, okay? If you want a little bit more power, that engine is still available in the car. But this is the one that we're looking at here. Now this replaces the old 2-litre unit that went before it, and it's going to be available in the CX-30 crossover as well. So if you are into crossovers, you can have this engine in that car as well. So this is what they call the 2.5-litre Skyactiv-G engine. Natty, trips off the tongue nicely, that. So whereas the old unit had 122 PS, this one has 140 PS and 238 Newton meters of torque, as opposed to the old engine 213 Newton meters of torque. So more power and torque, but why the increase in capacity? Well, by increasing sort of like the capacity of the engine, Mazda say that it gives it a more, there's more space to give it a more efficient combustion process, effectively. And by giving it a more efficient combustion process, it means that there's less emissions and more torque in the real world, you know, in everyday sort of driving. So that's what Mazda say. And it also improves on the noise, vibration and harshness as well, which we'll talk about when we're out driving as well. So more power, more torque, lower overall emissions, improved performance and better refinement. It also features a mild hybrid system, so not a plug-in hybrid, just a mild hybrid system, and it's got one of your usual you know, sort of like stop-start features as well, which you can turn off in the car as well. So fuel economy wise, well, Mazda say combined cycle around about 48 miles per gallon. And what I will say is this, as I say, Katie and I did over 100 miles in this car yesterday, and the fuel gauge didn't move off the full. It's still showing that now, which I think is incredible. So it's really good on the fuel economy, I would say. So again, the overall efficiency in terms of the figures will tell one story, but in the real world it is different. I think it's even better than what Mazda say it could be. If you go for that's on the manual transmission, you can obviously have it with an automatic as well if you want. CO2 emissions, they're pegged at 135 grams per kilometre. So if you look at that from a company car point of view, that's the figure you'll need to know about. Right, now I was quite curious to see how this car would perform, because you think 2.5 litre 4-cylinder engine, that's a big engine. That's a big capacity 4-cylinder engine in some respects. It's not all about power though, you know, it's 140 PS, which means it does a 0 to 60 time of 9.5 seconds. So it's fair to say that there are others in this class that do it faster, yeah? It's not all about the performance per se with this car. As I say, Mazda's theory behind this is to sort of like make it a more efficient combustion process, and therefore it sort of like brings down the emissions and ups the efficiency in the real world. Its numbers suggest slightly different on the test comparisons, I think, but in terms of the real world situations, Mazda say this is how it, you know, should perform better for people. And it certainly feels really good. And as I say, yesterday, my daughter and I, yesterday was Sunday, we woke up sort of like fairly early, jumped in the car and headed off for a bit of a breakfast down at Caffeine Machine down in South Hampshire. We did about 100 miles yesterday in the car. And I have to say, the fuel gauge, as I said before, didn't move off the full. Absolutely didn't move. So it's done really, really well in that sense. What does it perform like out on the road? Well, it's okay. One thing you do notice is that it doesn't have it has a consistency of torque all the way through the rev range. So whilst it's not neck-snappingly fast when it comes to acceleration, nor is there any real steps in the acceleration, you know, it doesn't seem to run out of puff. It does keep going all the way through the revs, which is nice, you know, because in some respects, because it is just a little bit down on its performance, you will want to do that. Now, it's not a rev happy engine, that's not what I mean. I just mean that it actually, what you will do is you will take it much further up the rev than maybe you say you would with other cars, because I say there's still availability of pulling power even higher in the rev range. So that's quite nice. Whereas obviously if they'd used maybe a small capacity turbo engine, you've got the, you know, you might have a little bit of lag first and then, you know, the power kicks in at that point. You don't get that with this engine. It's just a nice consistency all the way through. So it's quite drivable, if that makes sense. It's not a particularly, you know, sort of like, you know, there I am sort of like in third gear. If I, you know, I'm doing quite, let's bring it down, the speed down. What's behind me? Nothing really. So if I put it into fifth gear, there I'm doing 20 miles an hour and put my foot down. There's no shudder or shake, it just starts to just accelerate through. And that's what I mean. You know, it's just nice. It's a nice usable car. You know, it's a really nice usable drivetrain. Now, the handling of it. Okay, so what you have is a multi-link suspension system up front with a torsion beam at the rear end. And you might go, ooh, torsion beam, not particularly sophisticated. It's not, but in some respects, don't see that the use of a torsion beam is, you know, is being sort of like less of a thing than the fact if I had a multi-link setup at the rear being better. It works. It's absolutely fine. What I would say is its handling is very good. The steering's got a nice feel to it. It's very precise. Its turning is nice. So when you go into a bend and you turn the wheel, there's a good bit of feedback comes through from the front wheels. But its secondary ride comfort, I'd say, is probably where that system lets itself down a little bit. I would say there's just, and I would put that down as well to maybe these 18-inch wheels. It just feels a little bit jiggly on certain surfaces. You can start to feel a bit more transmission through the car from the road surface than maybe you would ideally like. But please don't take that to mean as it's uncomfortable. It's just making itself known that you maybe wouldn't get so much in other cars. That's what I mean. Hope that makes sense. However, the rest of it, well, that is all good. And I alluded to this a little bit on the interior section, because your relationship as a driver with the controls of the car is what I really like about this Mazda 3. So the driving position itself is fantastic. You know, you sit dead on to the pedals, to the wheel. The wheel itself is this lovely round 3-spoke leather wrapped steering wheel, which is just a joy to you know, to sort of put the car through a series of bends that we were on yesterday. But the big thing for me is this gearbox. What a delight of a gearbox this is. Absolutely beautiful to use. It's, people talk about, you know, the Mazda MX-5 having that rifle bolt action. It's very similar here. It's very similar. It's not quite as short as the MX-5s, but the lever just finds its way through the box so nicely. One finger down to third, one finger up to fourth, one finger up to fifth. It's so nice, it's so tactile, and it has this sort of spring that's just the right sort of tension as you go through the ratios. It always seems to find its way to the right slot. It always seems to find its way to the right ratio. And it is just a joy to drive a car that's got such a nice gearbox as this. And as I say, you know, in terms of the actual action of it, which is nice, the clutch as well is quite nice. It's not overtly light, it's not heavy. It just feels everything's consistent with the weights of all the controls of the car. It's genuinely a joyful thing to drive. It really is. So from all of that point of view, as I say, I am willing to forgive that slightly jiggly ride on it. And the data suggests maybe that sort of like, it could just do, I just think it could do a little bit more power. It would just be nice to have a little bit more power from it. It's not neck-snappingly fast, but it doesn't need to be. But just a little bit more would be nice. Other than that, the rest of it more than makes up for that, I think. You know, that lovely consistency of torque through the revs, this beautiful gear shift, the weight of the steering, the weight of the rest of the controls, the driving position, absolutely fantastic. Joyful car to drive, this is an absolute joyful car to drive. The brakes are nice too, so you know, when you come up to, you know, you're slowing down for a bend or a roundabout, you move across to the middle pedal, and there's a real consistency with the weighting of it. It just bites nicely. There's not a huge amount of body roll in the car. In terms of comfort, it's quite interesting because Mazda as a company, they are a little bit, if you'll pardon the expression, a bit anal when it comes to engineering. And what they've done is they've stiffened the actual sort of like seats, the framework of the seats, and they've tried to tune them in conjunction with the chassis and sidewalls of the tyres to make sure that your body stays sort of like, your body moves with the rest of the structure, but your head's, imagine what your head does when you walk. So even though you're walking, your head stays a bit flat, like the top of a gimbal. That's the sort of thing that Mazda have gone to try and make sure that your head stays flat, even if the rest of you is moving. Who does that? But that's the sort of level that they've gone to with this car. And it's not something overtly flashy or anything, it's a 5-door family hatchback. But for me, it is one of the best 5-door family hatchbacks because I love this little car. It is such a nice little car to drive. I'm saying little, you know what I mean though, but you know, it's such a nice, to get in a car like this, you know, despite what I drive all the time, you know, big fancy cars and big electric cars and all the rest of it, to get in just a normal, everyday family 5-door hatchback and find that it drives as beautifully as this is just an absolute pleasure. It really is. What a lovely little car. If I was going to if you were asking me to find a couple of more faults with it, I am struggling a little bit. But one thing I will say is this. You know what I was saying earlier about the shallow window line and feels a bit claustrophobic in here? Maybe visibility. Maybe visibility. Over the shoulder, out that back, you know, the rear 3/4 view, that's not great with the style of the car. It's a really thick pillar, and because you've got that window line that really narrows as it sweeps up, there's not a huge amount of visibility. If you were pulling out of a really tight angled junction, that's maybe one thing I could criticise it for. But in fairness, you get good big door mirrors, and obviously you get things like blind spot monitoring and all the rest of it as well with the car, with the lane keep assist, which in fairness, none of which is very intrusive. That's the other thing I'll say to you, which is good because it's buried in the menus to switch it off. But they're not very intrusive, sort of like advanced driver systems. So that's what I will say in its defence. You know, you don't mind them too much because they're not constantly beeping at you, trying to drag you back into lane. It's actually okay. But yeah, the rear 3/4 visibilities could be better. But that's the flip side. You have to pay for the really cool styling, I think. No, this is a great car. This is a great car. I'm really blown away by it. And as I say, it's just such a nice little car to drive around in. It's just so nice to drive. It's got a nice feel to it. If somebody was to turn around to me and say that this is your car for the next, 3-4 years, Brian, as whether it was a company car or whatever, I would not have any problems with that whatsoever. Because this, what a great little car. Now, I'm not going to go through all the prices for the car with you, because obviously you can read a price list, but there's more available in terms of trim levels when it comes to the hatchback than there is for the 4-door saloon. So you start with the Prime line trim in the Mazda 3, and that comes in at £24,460 and is really well equipped to standard. So Prime line is your kickoff. Then you move up to the Centre line, then you go to the Hamura, then you go to this exclusive line, and then your top of the range, which is the Takumi, and that's £33,705 for the Takumi trim with the 2-litre 186 PS engine with the automatic gearbox. Okay, this is a manual transmission 2.5 litre exclusive line, and it's only got metallic paint because that's the only option you can really have, and this is £30,080 on the road. Okay, so 30 bags to stand get you this car here. Interestingly enough, if you want the saloon, you can only have it in the one trim line, and that's the exclusive line, which is this one, but it doesn't get the grey wheels and the black at the front. It's more silver at the front and silver wheels. Don't know why, but that's what it is. But that comes in exclusive line only. So that's your trim levels from that point of view. So there's lots of choice. But as I say, in terms of equipment levels, they're all really well equipped to standard. Even that starter Prime line car gets a huge amount of equipment as standard on it. So, competition. Well, there's all the cars I mentioned at the beginning, isn't there? You're still going to be able to buy a Ford Focus this year. So that's still, sort of like a car that has to be considered, the Focus. Volkswagen Golf, Vauxhall Astra, Peugeot 308, Toyota Corolla, Honda Civic. I didn't mention the Seat Leon. There's a car for you to consider as well. I like the Leon, it's a good car. And then obviously you've got sort of like things such as the Hyundai i30 and the Kia Ceed as well. But as I say, I really like this Mazda 3. It's been a real surprise for me, this car, having it. I think it's a real standout car in the class. But there is certainly there's still a lot of choice out there if you want a 5-door family hatchback that isn't a crossover or an SUV. It's really easy to think that Mazda only really produced the MX-5. It's the immediate car you think of when you hear Mazda. But that's a little bit like thinking ELO only wrote Mr. Blue Sky. That's not just their only good song. There's absolutely dozens of them. They had some brilliant songs in their repertoire. And it's the same with Mazda. This is another brilliant product from the brand. Yeah, there are cars in the class that maybe offer a little bit more interior space, they're maybe a little bit more efficient when it comes to the drivetrains, maybe a little bit more sprightly when it comes to the performance. But as an overall package, I think this is an absolute gem of a car and a real standout car in the Mazda range, and a real standout car in its market space. So whilst there are other cars that maybe spring to mind more readily than the Mazda 3, don't forget about this one, because to do so would be an absolute travesty, because I think this is possibly the best car in its class and it needs your attention. Thank you for watching another road test review on House of Cars. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please can you make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not already done so, if you don't mind me asking. And then once you've done that, press the wee bell button that's down below, because then that way you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed it, and as I say, I really hope you have, give it a little thumbs up for me if you don't mind. And of course, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the Mazda 3. Do you have one? Did you buy it instead of a Golf, a Focus, an Astra, or one of the other cars I've mentioned about? What made you buy it? Have you got an old 323? Would you be interested in maybe changing up to... Oh, actually, the 323 went out a long time ago, didn't it? It's been the Mazda 3 for a while now. Would you upgrade your old Mazda 3 to the new one? Have you looked at it and decided against it? What made you decide against it? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you're interested in social media, I'm on Instagram and it's at House of Cars 1973. So if you want to give me a follow there as well, I would certainly appreciate that too. And remember, whether or not it is a small car or a large car, a slow car or a fast car, an old car or a new car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thank you for watching. I'm getting old. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. I'll see you again soon.